Stacy, we've been talking a lot in this conversation about the uneven playing field and about how when government does get involved, it often tends to be involved in a way that is more supportive of established, often big businesses than new or small businesses. Maybe thinking about this issue from a little bit different angle, are there any kind of like responsibilities for the larger businesses themselves?
I think one of our blinders in recent decades has been that we've tended to think about the economy as operating basically distinct from government. We talk about government sort of intervening in the economy from time to time. That's sort of how we think about it. But we sort of imagine that the economy operates out there on its own in a sort of ideal way and produces ideal outcomes. And I think that that's actually made it quite hard for us because we don't recognize that, in fact, government makes all kinds of decisions that structure what's possible in the economy and that structure markets. And that if you want to have a competitive, dynamic economy where lots of new entrants can come in and where established companies that maybe are larger have to stay on their toes, and have to actually really compete and work for it, that you need rules. You need a referee, just in the same way that you need for a sporting event. And that if you allow big companies to just take advantage of their size in ways that are predatory or that use just straight up market muscle or superior financial resources, you're ending up with outcomes that actually aren't driven by the market and all of the activity and the choices of market participants, but are really just driven by a kind of raw concentration of power. Amazon is one of the most, I think, significant examples of this. On the one hand, it's brought a lot of innovation and technology and services that many of us enjoy. At the same time, it has become a gatekeeper for online commerce. And that role as a gatekeeper, about almost 60% of the sales done on Amazon are done by smaller sellers that sell on its platform because they can no longer reach an audience on their own, that Amazon is so dominant in terms of product search that you need to be on the platform to sell there. But that sets up just a fundamental conflict of interest because Amazon is competing with the retailers that also depend on its site, and it sells directly against them. It also charges fees that keep growing and growing for being on the site. That's a kind of problem that we've actually dealt with before in history. We dealt with it with regards to the railroads. Back in the day, the railroads were this marvelous new technology that changed everything and opened up a lot of stuff, but they also became controlled by folks like John D. Rockefeller of Standard Oil. Part of how he built an oil monopoly was that he controlled the railroads in certain regions and he wouldn't let competing oil companies move their oil on the rails. And so this is a little bit similar to what Amazon has done in terms of controlling kind of the infrastructure for the online market. We passed a law that said, look, if you own a railroad, you can't also be involved in other things that compete, other businesses that compete with what goes on the rails. And it seems to me it's that kind of refereeing that we're missing. And it's partly because we've failed to recognize that government is always shaping the economy. Whichever choice it makes is shaping it in one direction or another. And the more that we look at that in a straightforward way, the smarter choices we can make about what kinds of outcomes we actually want to see.
I would not say it nearly as articulately, but I think there's a belief that, as you put it, the market just kind of exists out there. It runs on its own, and that we value the free market, right? That means we don't want to intervene in any way. Intervention is seen as bad, but there are all of these ways in which government is setting the rules that structure the market. And when government fails to intervene in more direct ways, perhaps, it cedes power to the entities in the market that already have the power, rather than the people, which is who the government is supposed to represent, right? Being able to set those rules and be the referee.
So I'll just jump in and actually add, the way that we think about this and at the Rule Center is that it's really about a both and, right? So we want to ensure that there's an approach to incentivizing big business and incentivizing small business startups. So, that means that we acknowledge there's been a significant underinvestment in small business and entrepreneurs, and we don't want to propose a divestment and any current incentive programs towards big business, but we also want to see something equally and done for small business at the same time.